And we're live. Welcome. Hi, Gway.
Hello.
Interesting little spank emoji you got there. Really, not a lot of people here yet. But we can at least chat, get started, you know. Spamming my chat with emojis, well, I appreciate it. Doesn't look like we have a dead void on the right side of the screen. And also thank you to CD Ball for the subscription, whether you're here or not. Yo, Ben. Nice to see ya. Oh, I apologize. I just woke up. I had a long morning. And didn't get to bed. Well, I have like a night or like a midday schedule, so I usually go to bed at like 8 a.m. or something like that. So that by the time the stream starts, it's like at least 6 hours of sleep or something like that. We had to do grocery shopping today because today was the first day we've had money in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it had to be done.
Yeah, I imagine that was at least, necessary and a nice experience to actually have money.
Yeah. Well, and groceries. That's a nice thing too. Trying YouTube chat today. All right. Cool.
No!
Cool.
Can't bring this to YouTube.
Alex Catgirl Squad rise up. The
Ugh.
infection grows. Well, I don't know. I was about to start with asking Alex what's been up, but like, I already know what's been up recently. The only interesting thing is something that we're working on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Anything else recently, I suppose, beyond that?
Honestly, it's just been hard at work at a fun thing we got brewing for this channel. Something that I've kind of wanted to do for a while and now have a chance to. Other than that, did a tournament, a 40k tournament recently, and I lost horribly.
Oh yeah, you did do that. Huh?
I was not last. I was second to last. So that's technically a win in my book.
Of how many people?
18.
I see.
Well, it was one of those things where, I mean, in general, I do not consider myself a sore loser or like crazy competitive. I like things that play competitively, but playing them without the competitive mindset. And also, it's just like I usually don't care if I lose. The only time I get upset is if it's something outside of my control, like the universe decides you lose, not that you lost. Every single one of my losses was because I was not playing as good as I could have, because I didn't know my army too well. And I didn't have a competitive list, it was what I had. So it was figuring out the army and playing against new people, like that kind of like thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not a feels bad like lose. I had a great time the whole time. I left each match feeling pretty happy. So it was a good time.
Oh, that's good, at least. As long as you enjoyed it, I mean, like, no one can really tell you that you did bad.
Yeah, and I also made plans to go to a big open tournament in October over in Chicago.
Nice.
My local area has a Warhammer team, and I'll be playing for them. So I'll have like a whole jersey and all that shit.
I forget how hard the Warhammer community goes sometimes.
Which is like how much like tournament stuff's taken seriously.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that people would even bother to wear jerseys all together and be like, some cringy team name or something like that.
Yeah, there's some fun ones. I mean, though, then also like there are teams that are like famous in the community. Like the two that I know of are the Goonhammer Squad. They have like a really big website for competitive 40K stuff. They're really good. They have some really good articles and like good information. And the best one, Art of War, which I've spoken to two people from it. The top players in that team, John Lennon and Richard Siegler, I've spoken to a little bit.
What's a table and why is it talking? If you need to know what a table is, then you need more help than we can offer. I apologize.
If you do want to know what a table is, if you join our Discord, there is in fact a text channel titled Tabletop Table Talk.
Yeah, we do talk about tables sometimes in Table Talk.
Yeah, and if you want to see or post good tabletop tables, feel free.
And yeah, of course, Gray, we can talk later if you got a good idea. I'm always open to new ideas for the channel. And thank you, Devin. The video was a lot of fun to make. It's definitely one of those things of the Kineticist, which we'll talk about a little bit today. We'll talk about as much as people are interested. Is a whole thing, is a whole class.
It seems like it. I was gear. I had the video for the Kineticist open. Problem is, I woke up like also recently. I've been sleeping in a lot. I got kicked out. Oh, by the way, if you post in the Impossible Cake channel and you post following the guidelines of that channel, you might get banned. I refuse to have any sort of fake cake objects in my server.
You'll be safe, I promise.
I do have that channel. Like, it's the only channel I have muted on our Discord. Because I don't want to know what gets posted in there ever.
You know, reading the comments on the why this class is hype is... It swings so hard one way or the other.
I did see that.
And, I mean, I said as much in the video. No one really seems to completely agree on the class. We'll get to that here in a little bit. I was just finishing up some upkeep on the channel. When are we binging watching Cake or Fake on Netflix?
Ugh. Besides the fact that show looks like a dumpster fire, I hate the premise.
I'm sure.
Every clip I've seen of the host is like kind of embarrassing.
Sounds like a great penalty for you if we ever have any penalty games.
Yeah, I'll do an in-depth like movie tuber like review video essay on it.
Well, Ben, being a kineticist is not about the survivability of it. I'm actually truly baffled by the kineticist in general. I feel like con was such an unnecessary trait to add to it. And even if you hard invest in con, you'll still have less health than a barbarian standardly. So what was the point? Other than that, I mean, general survivability, they can range. They have a very good AC generation. And, I mean, they can get infinite flight at level 8, which potentially could allow them to survive very, very well. Especially because they're a blaster class, and just being out of range allows them to just blast enemies without having to worry. So, I don't know.
A ranged class with con?
It's a melee range class. Their blast can be used in melee or at range.
Okay, makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah, man. A lot of us will be telling Alex just what the fuck this class is about. I do recommend everyone check out the why this class is hype, or why the hype over Kinesis. I mean, because that video very loosely describes everything in Kineticist without going into too much detail. I mean, I completely disagree. I think their melee is fine. Everyone is complaining about their, like, they only get light armor proficiency. But since they're gonna have more bulk to them standardly, just by grace of having Con as a key abilities trait, they're going to be close to the rogue as far as survivability. Especially a rogue that doesn't take a dex-based subclass. So I don't know. People are excited because it got con key because they just want a class that has it, I guess. Other people think it's dumb because it doesn't add to anything other than health and con. So I don't know. I wish they at least giving it 10 HP per level rather than 8, so that the con thing could have at least benefited it compared to all the other, like, martials besides Barbarian. Again, I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, Alex, what do you think? If a class offers like, what do you look for in classes, I guess? This is a good question, actually, to start things off with.
Primarily, I mean, for my sake, it always starts with just an aesthetic I think sounds interesting, and then finding what I think sounds the most hype and is fun to roleplay or like play out in game, actual in game. Because I care more about how the character looks while doing their thing rather than what actually happens when they do their thing. So primarily, if like the flavoring of a lot of the stuff is just cool, I'm into it.
Oh my god, you gotta really watch some of the Kineticist feats are the most metal sounding feats.
I am trying to find the playtest.
Just type in Pathfinder 2e playtest. It's like the first thing.
Let's see some of these feat names.
Like, check the level 18 for each of the elements. By the way, the class has 71 feats.
Okay.
And it's not even done. They're adding 2 more elements to the actual book itself.
Yeah, because I am excited for, like, metal, because that sounds hype.
Metal could be really, really cool. How would I homebrew Burn? Why would I homebrew Burn?
Infinite expanse of blue is heaven, or what?
No! Like, Burn is a mechanic from first edition, and I know that there's some people that really, really want that first edition feel for Kineticist, but it doesn't fit what Pathfinder really has for it this time around. I mean, there's not even the Aether plane anymore, or they can't even like channel Aether, which just gave them psychic abilities. So there is, I believe, I can't remember who did it, but there's a really good third party group that made Kineticist, and it was a lot closer to first edition. It's like Legendary Games. I think I talked to the dude actually who at PaizoCon. I think I spoke with him. Yeah, Legendary Games or something like that.
What? Rebirth in Living Stone. The Shattered Mountain Weeps.
Yep.
All shall end in flames. Ignite the sun.
The water one's the least exciting, but it's still pretty metal.
I mean, Usurp the Lunar Reigns is a pretty sick feat name, gotta be honest.
Yeah. Yeah,
Barrier of the Boreal Frost. Torrent in the Blood?
Yeah.
Yo! Solar Detonate? Yeah, fuck whoever says this class is lame. This is sick. I love this.
A lot of it, like, I think they got a lot of potential with it. And the playtest itself is interesting. We got a very, very long comment earlier, though, that's just like, hey, they do less damage than an alchemist at level 6, which is super bizarre that they would rate a class based on its level 6 performance. Especially because it's one of the few martials that doesn't get expert till level 7. So doing it at level 6 just seems kind of like giving it the worst possible look.
Yeah,
and
also, anyone who watches us, I think, knows our take on less damage, so bad class.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was my thought, reading it. I do agree that con is a really weird attribute to focus on. Especially because the only thing it really does for this class power-wise is increase its DCs for class DC, which any other attribute could have done. And because it has 8 HP plus con per level, it just isn't going to have that much beef, no matter really how you do it. It will be less than a like skinny barbarian. You know what I mean?
It kind of reads like one of those things where if you ask the designer, I bet they had a really good reason. But then, actually talking it out, maybe that reason's not as strong as they thought.
No,
I don't know.
The exact reason is because, yeah, it's a little bit. It's just first edition had con for Kineticist. That was the thing.
Oh, okay. And I assume that was more useful for them in first edition.
Well, so it's been mentioned a few times in chat here. It's called Burn. And essentially what the Kineticist could do before is they could empower their abilities by taking an HP hit. So the con made a little bit more sense because you were essentially paying it forward by having more con so that you could dump it for burn.
Huh.
Kinesis was also very strong, too strong, really, in Pathfinder First Edition. And that's why a lot of people are either very, very upset or are overly hyped because of that.
I mean, I'm going to put myself firmly in the hyped category, strictly on those feat names. Like, I want to play an Earthbender. I want to do that.
Yeah. Interesting take. But I don't know. I think if they gave it 10 HP, if their biggest thing was it was just a very beefy caster for some reason, or blaster, caster, non-caster, whatever, sure, have at it. It's just one of those things where the Kineticist feels kind of janky, but it's a playtest. I'm sure that a lot of what's out currently is just them tossing in a bunch of ideas together and seeing what sticks and putting con to see what con actually does and the player reception of it, which is a lot of people saying, yes, con. And then when you ask them why, they're like, because no one else has it. And then the other half is, no, it's the dumbest one. Why would I ever have con? So for everyone who says they really like the burn mechanic, I really don't. It is a huge cost in a combat scenario to be burning your own HP away, especially on your turn versus like an enemy turn. And what it mostly means is that your HP is reduced by a percentage based on the number of rounds in combat you're going into. That's mostly what it is. And the thing is, right, it unbalances a character build because obviously for something like con or HP, it's a big cost. It's something that is dangerous to do even, especially at level 1. And thus, they want to give you power for it. But Pathfinder 2e is so balanced that power gains that kind of break the norm make a class much stronger than it needs to be. And it makes trivial encounters more trivial, and it makes difficult encounters more dangerous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's not the point, though, King Neo. The point is that in a fight, you're reducing your HP. It doesn't matter if it's non-lethal damage, because you know what the enemy's going to do? They're going to lethally attack you after you've non-lethally reduced your HP.
Yeah, I can see it being the problem. I honestly, I almost wonder if for the sake of the playtest, adding in burn, just to see how it operates in 5e to, like, I guess, test out that element. Because it does seem like, you know, throwing a lot of stuff, more stuff that could be tossed out in a playtest, probably for the better.
Well, okay, so, like, it all really boils down to this. I think what they were really testing was how the action economy / resource costs for the class was going to work. Because, as I mentioned before, this class can get infinite flight at level 8.
Yeah.
Which is the only class to be able to do so when most other classes that get access to infinite flight do so at level 16.
Mm-hmm.
And flight is a very powerful in not only just combat, but in exploration. Like,
Flight's a handy skill to have.
It's really, really good. Now, I will say, obviously, you have to have access to air, and not every kineticist do have access to air. But they also get a lot of spell-like abilities infinitely. Like, a lot of what the kineticist really is an infinite spellcaster that can pick their individual spells using feats, and then those spells are equivalently 3 levels worse than the spell it's, like, based off of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they get at level 18 a fireball spell, kind of. Ignite the sun. But it does like 4d6 damage, which is really bad for level 18. But it also gives any ally within 20 feet of the sun an additional d6 on their attacks.
Yeah.
Depending on the number of rounds of combat, that could be better than a fireball overall for, on use basis. And depending on your teammates, too. And it gives your allies essentially a free flaming rune without worrying about their rune, like, amounts currently. And that's just a lot of what Kineticist is they just get a lot of spell-like abilities that they can use infinitely, and the only thing is that a lot of them have 3 action costs. And if you look at how the class is designed, some of the feats are 2 actions, but they have overflow, and overflow expends the element you've gathered, which means they kind of have a reload mechanic, because they got to gather the element as an action. Or they just straight up have 3 actions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to stop everyone here. I'm not interested in talking about burn. That's carryover from the first edition, and I don't think that, 1, it's relevant because they haven't even introduced it, and 2, if they did want to introduce it, then a lot of their abilities need a rework based on just the fact that you could empower them in some way more than they already can do. Like, none of their feats are really orientated towards that, so I can't even speak on what burn would actually do, and it might actually tip the balance on the functionality of some of these abilities, making them go from kind of meh to super strong. So
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of, like, taking a sacrifice to empower yourself more, but, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I think King Neo says maybe it is for the best. Though, like,
go ahead, sorry.
I was just bringing up, like, as you were talking about, like, the whole thing with Ignite the Sun, I was reading through them. Like, these 18th level, like, fire feats, they both seem really good. Like, Ignite the Sun does damage and also is just an active buff that you can sustain. Like, yeah, but that's handy. You pop that off like turn 1 or something, and you have for a whole minute they like essentially like battle wide buff. Because what doesn't most like combats in Pathfinder last like four-ish rounds?
Yeah, I mean, like on average.
Yeah, and then like isn't because I know I read in one either Pathfinder D&D thing like doesn't a minute isn't a minute time like 10 rounds?
It is.
Yeah, and then like all shall end in flames is sick. That is fucking awesome.
It's a really good one.
That is a great like just pop that at the end of your like oh well I got 10 HP left, run to the middle, kaboom, I'm back.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, the fact that they can just rebirth themselves from the ashes is incredibly interesting. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm also not necessarily against burn mechanics. It's just always in tabletop I feel that they are not as good as people like to think they are, because it's one of those things that it's a really big cost, and if it has an equal payout, the class can be broken by the grace of that. And then Pathfinder has such good healing in the game anyway. I mean, their clerics literally get free heal slots at their highest spell level, that the penalty for burn can be easily overcome. In which case they're getting just straight power for no real costs. So I feel like burn is just not a great mechanic for what they were going for, and I think what they want to go for instead is a more dynamic martial class that gets the ability to completely custom build their class. Because not only this, and something that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting when they're talking about the power of the Kineticist, they get extra feats. They can have up to 5 extra feats. Granted, half of those are level 1, but even level 1 feats are really good. If you take a look at Stone Shield from the Earth Tree, you get a essentially better shield cantrip, because it gives you +2 to AC, gives you +2 to fort saves, and you can use it for a shield block reaction if you absolutely want to. And they can just keep casting it. Yes, when the shield is broken, it becomes expended and you have to regather an element before you can raise that shield again. But even if you don't use the shield block reaction itself, you get essentially the shield cantrip, only better. Single action, you get 2 AC, 2 fort, and you're good to go. It doesn't take up a hand because it uses your gathered earth already. That's essentially what it is. I mean, I think it's debatable. Surviving is more important than action economy. If your action economy is expended to survive, I think it's a really good potential. I'm just saying it is. Well, the thing is, though, is like the regathering is the cost for the fact that you can keep bringing it back, which means you have a shield with potentially infinite health for an extra action every round. You know, it's just you're not going to use it every round. Hopefully you're not. worried about your health every round. And if you are, then you have a really good tank build. Because you're able to mitigate, at level 1, 6 damage a round. And every odd level, it ups by an additional 3 HP. Meaning that at, level 7? I think we had this discussion during the stream, too. It's like 6 plus 3 times 9, 15 HP at level 7. You can just negate 15 HP for an extra action. But regardless of that, regardless of talking about the action economy, it still is better than the shield cantrip, and it doesn't take a hand, technically, because they can still use their gathered element to do damage as well.
Yeah, I mean, that does just sound like a really good tool.
It's just a better shield cantrip.
Yeah.
And beyond that as well, there's some nutty feats. What was it? There was one in particular that let them attack 5 times at their max attack for all their actions in the round, but still.
5 times?
5 times.
All right.
It is called Chain Blasts. There we go. And so you make a blast attack, and against an enemy within the first range increment of your element, which depends on what element you have. If it hits, you attempt a new range elemental blast against a different target within the first range increment, starting from that target. And it uses the same multi-attack penalty as the first hit. You can keep chaining blasts in this way for a total of 5 times, but you can't target the same creature twice. Chain Blast, in most cases, allows you to attack 5 times. Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It's a super good feat, regardless. Like, if a class has a broken feat, a class has a broken feat. And this is better than Power Attack by far. Yes, it is contingent that you hit the enemy every time. So this is not necessarily something you use on the boss, as much as you chain it up to the boss and hopefully hit the boss, because, you know, that. But that's still 5 attacks at max attack penalty, which is unheard of in the game. Like, other classes have to do it for every enemy within reach, and you rarely have 5 enemies in reach.
True. Like 2, maybe 3 at like most.
And at level 10, they have the same multi-attack penalties every martial class besides fighter. So it's a very good feat, and like a lot of their blast feats I think are really, really solid overall. They just get a lot of dynamics. They get a lot of things they can do. It's something about the class that, like, when you talk to the number crunchers, they're angry because it doesn't do big damage numbers, which, I mean, so what? So neither does Investigator, but I love the Investigator class. You know? Yeah. And Investigator class is arguably worse because they have to make 2 actions to make 1 normal attack. The only thing is that they get the benefit of knowing what the result is before you roll it. So, you know, it's something that really can come out. And people underestimate utility. My God, do people underestimate utility. Like, what happens in a combat, sure, is important, I guess. But most combats are never hard enough that you gotta min-max to get out of it. You know what I mean? But you know what is difficult? Exploration activities. Actions that you take outside of combat. Oh, you guys gotta get up the side of this sheer cliff. Did you bring climbing gear? Oh, no one brought climbing gear. That's a really hard athletics check. Oh, no, here comes the Kineticist, who can either A, make stairs out of the wall, or B, fly infinitely. And at level 14, they can make their whole team fly.
Huh.
For no spell slot.
That's sick.
Yeah. The Kineticist is incredible purely because they are a class that is 100% customizable. Not only based on what gate you pick in the beginning do you get extra feats at level 1, making the level 1 Kineticist arguably one of the strongest level 1 classes in the game, but you also get feats later. You get essentially the fighter feats where you get a feat and you pick at the beginning of your day like what feats you pick up. Like at what level is it? I think it's 9. You can pick a, let's see here, elemental flexibility at level 9. Yeah, you get an 8th level or lower feat. It has to be an impulse feat. You get an extra feat. And then later they can pick from 14th and below and an 8th and below, giving them even the universal gate elementalist that can pick from all the trees gets a bunch of actions. Yeah, Dead Phoenix, right? But they're not a caster class. I hate when everyone keeps saying they get less options in a caster class. First of all, they get infinite spell slots. And second, they don't have to worry about preparing the spells every day like prepared casters do. They just can do what they can do. They're like a repertoire caster, only with infinite spell slots.
So they're a caster that gets rid of the mechanics that I don't like.
Well, you know what's actually really dumb? They're still a caster because in order to use their impulse abilities, they still need to manipulate or they still need to gesticulate and have concentration, which is exactly the same as cast a spell. So they're still a caster, but not caster. I think the class is really wonky, honestly, what they have. But I think intentionally it was designed the way it is because they want to see how different mechanics interact and how the community responds to that. Because legitimately, infinite spells is just stronger than what any caster can do as far as utility is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to run out of spell slots. No, I mean, this definitely seems like a class that I can see myself playing. Because, like, they're very customizable. And I think is a super cool idea. A class that, like, no two kineticists will be the same.
Yeah, right. And again, Dead Phoenix, like, it doesn't matter that their blasts aren't as customizable when they can customize every feat to get different abilities. Like, it's like saying, oh yeah, fighters, but fighters only have one weapon group they can really pick from to get the best out of their class. If they don't pick from that one weapon group, they are kind of shit in the bed, not gonna lie. Because they're giving up the one thing that really makes fighter different than other martials, which is their +2 bonus. Yeah, they're just, this is the thing. They're a martial class that offers more utility than most martial classes and can do so infinitely. Well, right, Dead Phoenix, but the thing is, what other classes get instead of that +2 adds to them, while fighter gets nothing. Like, if it's a ranger, they get precision, they get flurry, whatever. If a fighter is at the same multi-attack penalty, ranger is just a better class. So, you know, like, it's such a controversial class. Like, oh my god. I'm not here to argue with everyone. It's a playtest. The playtests are always wonky. Legitimately, they're always really wonky. And this class is built on the idea that you can customize them as much as you see fit. If you pick a single element, you get 3 bonus feats at level 1 to pick from their impulse feats from whatever. And then you could just go full blast and have a little bit of customization, because even if you don't use your actual feats for anything but improving blasts or like their mainline feats, you still get more impulse feats from their elemental trees just by their elemental flexibility whatsoever. So they can get a lot of combat focus and utility. Again, chain blasts is kind of broken, actually, especially because for most of the elements, they can easily chain them to hit every enemy in a room, unless that room is truly expansive and everything is super duper spread out. Earth, I can agree, probably not, but like every other element for sure, especially fire. And that level of just the ability to hit so many characters with their max at, like at level 10, like it's just like it's a must take feat, honestly, which I don't like must take feats, because I feel like that just limits what the class was going for.
Yeah,
but
everything's gotta be the same thing.
Yeah. And they get a lot of abilities that I feel like in combat, there's definitely builds in here that make Kineticist, I would argue, stronger than most martials. Their lack of changing weapons really doesn't affect it, because when you're talking about overall combat balance, it's expected that you're using maybe 1 to 2 weapons in a combat. Mostly 1. Geniekin. I'm sure there's a lot of ways you can make it. I would say they're weak to anything that affects their will modifier, because while they're very motivated to take dex, which means that their reflex and fort saves are going to be really, really good, they have almost no reason to take wisdom, meaning that anything that targets that specifically, stupefied as well, would not be very fun for them.
Oh god, I can imagine. That'd be rough.
And that's, you know, that's something to consider as well. Not that you couldn't boost your wisdom, but like, and this is another thing that always kind of like, everyone's so focused on like, it's not a mental stat. You know how many skills wisdom boosts?
A good amount.
It's like 2 or 3. It's 3.
Is it 3? I thought it was more.
Wisdom boosts. Bum, 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 bum.
I might be thinking of 5e, admittedly. Honestly.
You might be. Wisdom boosts. Oh, it's actually 4. I keep forgetting about medicine is its own skill. It's medicine, nature, religion, survival. I'll tell you right now, survival is not a very commonly used skill.
Nah, not really.
Not too huge.
Oh and your
medicine,
initiative.
honestly, easier. It does add to your initiative as well. That's fair. That's fair, I suppose.
Initiative messed up.
But still, like half of the wisdom skills, most characters don't use anyway. Some do to great effect, I'm sure, but they're just not as big as people think. And I would argue that perception is one of the best ones, because initiative, well, one, you could actually use different skills for initiative depending on how you enter a scenario.
Does Kineticist have options for different initiative checks?
Everyone does.
Oh, that's fair.
Because if you start a combat stealthed, you can use stealth.
Oh, fair enough.
And the like. Granted, I do admit, wisdom is good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying people weight the different like mental ones besides intelligence very weirdly, and intelligence is even not that good because it just gives you more skill proficiency starting out. None of them are very combat focused besides recall knowledge, which is important. Very important. But charisma is really solid because it gives you access to intimidation and deception, which is good for feinting and demoralize. Both really good skills to have in combat.
Demoralize is phenomenal.
And again, I'm not saying wisdom's bad. It's definitely good, but like the key ability score thing is really not a big deal. Truly and honestly. Because they could have really decent stats elsewhere. Like, yeah, not starting out, but by level 5 for even wisdom could be an 18 at level 5. So, you know, depending on how they stat themselves out. Like, for whatever they want to do. If they want good charisma for that good old intimidation deception, which I recommend, honestly, for the Kineticist, they can get some pretty good buffs there. And whatever their main combat set is, probably Dex, because they're a light armor user. You know, they can even get flexible casts, which allows them to... Or flexible blasts. My apologies. Which allow you to add finesse trait to any of the blasts, or they could even add the brutal trait to their strength, to their range rolls, meaning that they use their strength for range, which is pretty good too. But giving earthful like finesse or earth finesse or water, like, can be really good. Like, there's a practicality that I think everyone ignores because they're just trying to think about its potential and not about the overall function of how it would actually play in a game. Which is funny because the comment mentioned earlier, which is like, people who are excited about this don't understand the game. No, my friend. If your only complaint is that they don't do as much damage as an alchemist at level 6, you don't understand the game. Because so much happens in exploration. I think the reason why people don't think about it is literally because exploration has a near infinite amount of scenarios it can put you into. And the Kineticist can just do really well in a lot of them, depending on what impulses they pick up. And like I said, they have certain feats that are just broken. And as far as combat is concerned, Chain Blast, I feel, is actually too strong.
Yeah, I guess it does depend, because is it right that yeah, I can look at the thing itself. Because Chain Blast, if you like miss, say, the second attack, does it just stop?
It just stops.
Yeah. I guess in that case, it's just how high level you are, what you're hitting, and how good you can roll. Because you can always just get nat ones.
Well, yeah, of course. It's a gamble in that respect. But so could anyone. Like, that's not a real good guess on power, because a fighter who is striking... yeah, fair, Yuki. Some people are like that. But yeah, like a fighter, if they miss their strike, then they miss their strike. They could just roll nat ones. It's not a really good argument.
Yeah,
the thing is, for your first attack in the round, you have a pretty good... I was doing the math recently for, I think, one of my builds, actually, that I'm getting set up. Just to see, like, logistics and whatever. And standardly, after level 5, I guess level 7 in this case, your chance to hit an enemy is over 50%. And if they have any penalties, it skyrockets above that. So, you know, depending on the scenario, getting 5 Chain Blasts off is honestly not that too unexpected. and they have about as much chance to hit 5 creatures as any other class does to have like hit 2 creatures at least. You know what I mean? Like they can at minimum hit 2 creatures if another class can hit 2 creatures. So they just have more damage potential.
I do really want to chain blast with Earth. Very bad.
Yeah, Earth is one of the ones that Chain Blast isn't as good on because its range increment is so low. I would say it's still probably very feasible. Most battle arenas take place in a less than 50 by 50 grid.
Yeah, it's still 20 feet.
Yeah.
You can at least get, like, most of it off. That, and, I mean, to be honest, of all the ones I'm seeing, Earth, I like Earth. I like Earthbenders. That they were always my favorite in Avatar. So, that's the one I'd play. And I like their traits. I like the higher damage dice.
And what are you talking about, Dead Phoenix? Do you not understand that that's 15d4 damage you dealt with 2 actions? 15d4? Like... And not only that, but like... whatever weapon runes you have on your hand wraps and mighty blows, that just adds additional damage on top of that times 5. You have flaming, that's an additional 5d6 damage on top of your total damage for 2 actions. That's most of most martials. With 3d, 3d12 for instance, if they hit 2 characters maybe, because they have to worry about multi-attack penalty, but we'll say they have like a double slice ability or something like that. That's still, let's see, 6d12, which is like 36 damage or something like that, where 15d4 is on average probably 45 damage or something like that. Well, Yuki, the thing is though, is they only don't have it for like 5 levels, depending, like every other 5 levels maybe. Because at level 5, right, let's say they're using Dex as their main to hit for whatever reason. At level 5, if it's at least a 16, it'll be level 18, which matches all other martials. And then 10 to 15, yeah, it's going to be 1 point lower. But then 15 to 20, it's the same again. Yeah, and so does so does Kineticist. I don't know what you're talking about. True, but they do become master at 13, like every other martial does. Why they did that way, I have no idea. Honestly, honest to goodness, I have no idea why they did that to a martial class.
Yeah, it seems like it's just different, but not like good different. Just different to be kind of different. Like that element.
There must have been some balancing methodology they used, because technically one of the features about it as well is that their blasts are both melee and range weapons at the same time, that they don't have to switch for and don't actually take up their hands.
Yeah, either there's like, honestly, there's either some like very specific, again, you ask the person who like wrote, or at least majorly wrote this, they probably have either a good reason or it's a, ah shit, didn't think of that. Whoops. Oh well, playtest. I don't know. I can't say I fully see the logic of it. Like having it be at like train to level 7, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I said,
actually play it.
My only assumption is that they're accounting for the fact that they're essentially, they have like a really good one-handed weapon in a sense that can hit at both range and melee without having to swap, which saves action economy technically. or movement, actually, because that's another thing as well that you need to consider. They can essentially strike you almost no matter where you are without needing to move or swap weapons. And yeah, Yuki, I mean, again, I don't know why people want in con. I think it's not a great attribute to pick from. And they don't even get a 10 HP. They're not even a 10 HP class, so they don't really get the most benefit out of it anyway. So I don't know why. And they may give Con some kind of bonus to them. I think it would be an interesting twist if they changed the damage type for their blasts to adding Con to the damage rather than Dex or Strength.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
That would be very interesting. I think they could do that, and it would still not really overly affect anything other than the class's accuracy. So they may actually do that. That may already actually be planned, but they kept it out of the playtest because they want to see how it is as is in case it's too strong. Okay, as again, potentially, the things like Chain Blasts and infinite spell abilities that make exploration significantly better. Like, again, like their exploration is nuts depending on their feat choices. They can do so many things. They get infinite spells. The spellcasters will be jealous because when they're not in combat, they're like, ah, man, I would use the spell right now, but I kind of want to conserve for the battles to come. And the Kineticist is like, oh, well, good thing I don't use spell slots, and does the thing, you know? I will still argue that they could still have good potentially combat skills with little issue.
They seem like they'd still be useful. Yeah, your damage output might not be as good, but a lot of these abilities do seem like really handy, or either like give a really nice buff or, you know, do some fun damage. I still don't see the complaint with the weaker fireball complaint with Ignite the Sun. I still think that's just a good ability to use in general. I don't see that as a con. Agree. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be dope though if they made it so like Investigator has the you get to add your con. Give me a muscle wizard.
Yeah.
This would be a muscle wizard class in the best way.
Yeah, I think if they just add con to their damage rather than strength or whatever, then that'd be less reason for them to even need strength. They could just dump strength and it wouldn't be a big issue.
Yeah.
Because they don't even use heavy armor anyway.
Yeah, but just like, they're just really healthy. It's like they're like a string being built like a brick shithouse, and you can't top them over.
But even things like getting Body of Air, which gives you gaseous form as an infinite ability, your character can just slip under door cracks whenever they want. They can go through grates. They can get out of literally anywhere. You can't take it away from them because they can conjure their element anywhere. You literally could not imprison a Kineticist with that ability.
Yeah.
It is actually impossible. As long as they're conscious, they can escape.
I actually love that. That's the thing I have so much fun with playing my Bard in like the 5e game I'm in, is the amount of tools my character has to not be captured ever. I love that. I love playing characters that are really like slippery, where you just can't like hold them down. They have I have 5 different tools to escape right now. I love that shit. So that's more reasons why I think this class is pretty sick. I can't wait to see its finished state, but in its current state, I feel like I'd play this and have a good time.
Well, let's see. Let's address things here. Ben, I could summon my own house that flies and my own house, though. Can you do those infinitely? And, I mean, if we're talking the champion's ability, then your mount can't fly till, like, level 18 anyway. And I'll tell you now, the Kineticist has way more utility than that. For Yuki, but doesn't that create issues? Isn't there right choices? The thing is, though, is they get a bunch of feats. Again. Like, They just get extra feats, and they can swap those with elemental flexibility every day if they so choose. So picking the right feat just comes down to whether they choose to or not, because they have really no limit on doing so. Only need it once per day. Well, yeah, but then again, then you literally don't have anything on the Kineticist besides, I guess, summoning your own house, I guess. But like, even then, that resource cost for a spell slot is still a cost. It's still something else you can't do that day. Well, Kineticist really doesn't have that option, or it doesn't have that problem. And they're also not a caster, so there's really no point in comparing the two. If anything, it's important that spellcasters offer better options than a Kineticist can, or the Kineticist would just be a better option than casters. You know what I mean? Like, the whole point is that casters use resources and they get the benefit for it. The thing, though, is that, like I said, in a lot of situations, a lot of the abilities that they can pick up from any elemental tree are really, really good. Like, even if we talk about, like, being able to conjure a rock wall infinitely. Like, that's very strong. Infinite stone skin. A worse stone skin, but they can do that for every combat without having to worry about expending any of their offensive ability, you know what I mean? Like, they have so many abilities that create cover, or not cover, conceal, that conceal everyone.
Like, yeah, like, looks like Dust Storm.
Dust Storm.
Yeah. Or even, like, Restoring Mud for Earth. Like, that's just a free 2d6 hit points you can toss at people.
Yeah. It's just a worse lay on hands, but, like...
Yeah. Doesn't cost a resource.
Doesn't cost a resource. You can do so infinitely. Not only that, they had another really, really good... It was like an area heal. I think it was in water, maybe?
It's probably in water.
Let's see here. What is that healing ability I'm thinking of? Yeah, Torrent in the Blood. Another metal-ass name for a ability. Healing wave splashes across creatures in a 30-foot cone, cleansing each creature in that area gets 3d6 HP, and can attempt a new save against one poison or disease afflicting it. On a failed save, the condition doesn't worsen.
That's handy utility.
Yeah, this one, they can't be affected by it more than, once per 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's the same with the mud,
but it's a 30-foot cone. You can hit all your allies for 3d6.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the mentality of it's not as good as an option, but it's free.
It's free.
Like,
they don't need to spend like time outside of combat to refresh their focus points. So, like, they can do other exploration activities. Not that that's a super big factor, I'll say. But they still can. And then you also have to consider as well, there's literally nothing stopping the Kineticist from really multi-classing into another, like, spellcaster class, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And then having access to high-level spells eventually. And infinite spells. Will they be as good as a caster at spellcasting? Still, no. But they'll have access to higher level spells, kind of breaching the one of the bigger complaints about it. And the thing is, they still have elemental flexibility, so even if they dedicate like a good 5 feats to another class, they still get 2 feats back for their class anyway. 3 feats technically if we're counting the additional ones at level 1. Their action economy is really rough, and I highly agree with this. I think a lot of their dynamics are gummed up. I said in the video as well as my first impression of the class, that in combat, I feel like will perform worse than most other classes. But outside of combat, they'll outperform most classes. Hands down. No questions. Because everything they can do infinitely. They have a lot of options. They can do a lot of different things. And this isn't even everything. They're releasing 2 more elements when the book comes out. But we'll see how it is. I know for a fact everything will be tightened up and the Kineticist will feel a lot better when they actually release it. Because that is how it has been for every other class up until this point. I feel like they threw a bunch of different things at the wall to see what stuck. So they knew what they could focus on. Because if you look, and there's a lot of intention of design here. If you look at water has a lot of 3-action abilities. But most of the other elements do not have quite as many. And I think that's purely for the fact they want to see which abilities players will favor over, and if the action economy makes that big a difference or not.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I overall, I think the Kineticists... Yeah, of course. That's why a playtest exists.
It's an important thing. It's the I always feel like for playtest stuff, anytime I'm reading any sort of playtest material or beta stuff, it's a thing you always look for and you kind of feel like you want to do is toss in stuff that you're like, this might not function as I intended, but I'll toss it in here anyways. Because if it doesn't work, then yeah, people will tell you and you can fix it. It's stuff I've done. I mean, I was on the beta for Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous, so I contributed to playtest stuff already, and I intend to do it again with their other game. So it's just finding what stuff you can see the way that they want it to intend, and does it work as intended?
And let's make sure there's no misconceptions here, right? I think that this class is very wonky. I don't think that this as is good enough to put out in a book.
Yeah, this needs a little bit of work. I still think it's sick and I'd play it, but it definitely could use some more work.
Yeah, I wouldn't even allow this in my games, honestly, as it is currently. I think that there's too much wonkiness to it to make it a fair experience for everyone involved. Yeah, honestly, I don't know why. Honestly, I don't understand, but their design team is really good. With how Thaumaturge and Psychic came out recently as well, that both really changed the formula, and both of those classes feel really, really good, actually. I have complete confidence that Kineticist will come out looking good when everything is said and done. And the only reason why I'm even making arguments to argue why they function is because, one, that's important for the process, right? It's important to debate what works and what doesn't, and to point out what other people might not notice about some classes. And two, if you looked at my video, I say I will also be adding to the forum as well my own impressions on it once I digest a little bit more and understand it a bit. We have no idea, Ben. They say they definitely want to reduce the number of classes they're putting out in a year. I would not be surprised if Elementalist is the only one coming out next year with how deep it is. Actually, you know what? I've been defending out Kineticist for a bit here. Let me take a dump on Kineticist. I think the Kineticist is a big waste of space and time when you consider the fact that a lot of their abilities are just spells but a little bit different. But they have to rewrite them because they're for Kineticist and they have to function differently. And not only that, but they designed a whole class that is going to be 30 pages long.
Yeah, it's gonna be
And
the craziest part.
that's a bunch of design time, a bunch of space in a book, and a bunch of everything for one class. And that doesn't feel like it's fair to other classes that may not have gotten the same amount of effort put into them, in a sense. So I think what they're doing with Kineticist is interesting and is cool, but I feel like breaking the formula in this way just is inefficient. I think they could have done a lot more to, like, okay, I would be happy if they just gave Kineticist spell like abilities every day, you know. Yeah, it really is. I what side are you on, Dead Phoenix? Honestly here. I understand why it is the way it is. I don't think it's a bad idea to have a class that has a lot of customization, because each of the essentially feat trees, you may only have access to one or a couple, you know, unless you're a universalist. Which at this point, besides they have some feats very much specified for whether you're a dedicated gate, dual gate, or universal gate. I don't think those are enough to justify necessarily taking even like dual gate in a sense, because having the option to pick from any of them seems too good to pick out and customize exactly the playstyle you want, and the cost is 2 first level feats. So I don't know. I definitely think that this class needs a lot of work, but I think it's cool. I think it's legitimately interesting. I think giving players a martial class that feels super dynamic and can be played in a lot of ways, whether you're blasting or blast slashing, I guess, you're kind of always doing your thing, and you can mess with the battlefield if you want to. You can go super support if you want to. You can go super aggressive if you want to, chain blast, all that kind of stuff. And you have just a lot of different options that you can do with a single class. I think it's really interesting, and I like how they're adding metal and earth, or metal and wood. I think those are two very interesting elements to be working with, and I like how they're kind of moving around from the central 4 elements and going with more of the Taoism, like, circle of elements kind of thing.
Yeah. It's the thing that makes me wonder if they're going to add some sort of mechanic for, say, with, like, granted, correct me if it's in there, because I have not looked at this section, of, because with the circle of elements in Taoism, there's, like, they interact in certain ways. I'm wondering if certain elements gain higher affinity with each other. You know, like wood and fire kind of deal. I forget the exact, like, how the circle interacts with each other. Yeah, but I wonder if that's going to be a thing.
Well, someone mentioned earlier, and I forget who did it, so I apologize. Speak up if you're the one who mentioned this. They're even planning on having some mixed element abilities, where you mix 2 elements together to get a unique ability for something, or unique feats.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, because then if you, I think it's then like earth and metal and water is like how it interacts, and then there's like anti-elements or something. I'd have to. Granted, the time I've studied Taoism is it's been a while. So I'm not as, freshened up on it.
You know, Seth, actually, they have a spell list. It's called the elemental spell, not Kinesis. There's what's called the elemental spell list, which is exactly that. I think they would be better as a repertoire caster, actually, and just picking which spells they like. But I think that that could have saved a lot of time and effort on the Kineticist's behalf, and they could have just added a lot more general things that they could use to manipulate those elements. I think, again, a lot of their spells, which, to be fair, some of them are pretty sick, actually. What is it? There's a really fun water one. Drowning Sphere. It uses Aqueous Orb, but the Aqueous Orb also grows whip-like tendrils that can strike at nearby foes or attack the creature that's trapped inside of it.
Oh shit, okay.
That's a really fun ability.
That's dope.
What kind of skills are fun with Kineticist? I mean, potentially any of them. If you pick Deception, you could feint people in combat, get a bonus, make up for the difference you have with other martials, for instance. Granted, they could do it too, but that's not the point. You could bury them in the earth with earth and athletics. Acrobatics and air, I don't even actually think there's a lot of crossover, honestly.
I'm actually surprised to hear that.
A lot of their air stuff is more about like flying themselves or everyone else. They don't really like jump or anything.
I guess there's no reason to do like sick flips if you can just fly.
That's true too, I guess. I don't know about all that, but I definitely think giving Con more functionality is also in the class's future if they decide to keep Con as its key attribute, which I think they'll do just because people want it for some reason. Even though they can't get like a max HP class because they don't have enough HP per class level. Give them Con Elemental Lore. I don't even think that's super necessary, honestly. Con and Athletics, maybe. If they got Con plus Athletics, that would be pretty big. Fire and Athletics. I mean, like, again, it's like any of them. It's like saying, what can you do with the class? Well, there's a lot of builds for the class, technically, if you really want to go that way. You can go Wisdom, add some Wisdom, get some healing in it, all that kind of stuff. Technically, and this is something that also people, I think, aren't necessarily thinking about, there's a way you could design Kineticist without even maxing your Con out. You just don't pick any abilities that require enemies to roll against your class DC, and you're kind of good to go.
Yeah, honestly.
Because like Stone Shield, absolutely not necessary. Restoring Mud, don't need it. Like, there are plenty that do, don't get me wrong, a grand majority of them do, but if you just wanted to go pure blasting with a little bit of extra functionality, you don't even have to focus your Con if you really don't want to.
I think the reason I'm so like endeared to this class, because like this is definitely one of those things in the playtest where like I see the problems, I get the criticisms that are being pointed out. I think there's some very good points that are made. I think the part of me that really likes this is it does feel like this class is kind of like a passion project for whatever designer is making it. Like, it's so clear there's so much like actual thought and care put into it that completely endears it to me, and to the point where I'd be like, yeah, I'd play this as is. Like,
I think you're right. I think with how fucking hard some of those names go, whoever was designing this really wanted Kineticist to be cool.
Yeah, this is somebody making a class for themselves, and I am completely on board. Whoever made this class has some kick-ass taste. So that's I think the reason why I'm seeing all these critiques and I'm like, it's still cool.
That's cool. I like that. I know that there's actually like a head designer for it currently though. I forget who it is. Actually, you know what's a really sick idea? You know what I think would be really cool? If they picked either dual gate or single or dedicated gate, and based on what elements they picked for those, they can add con to certain ability scores or skill checks rather than their attribute. Like that they take Earth, for instance, they can add con rather than strength to athletics checks. Or if they pick air, they can add it to like acrobatics or stealth, something like that. I think that'd be some really cool functionality, and it'd make it so that those choices I think are more viable than just getting extra level 1 feats over universal.
It seems like I don't know if it's just this is just the playtest thing, because at the first page does give like a few names. I don't know if they're the ones who made it, or if it's just like, we're higher ups in this company. Here's a little letter from us about playtesting. Yeah, I'm curious. I would very much like to figure out who made this, because I also just want to follow more Pathfinder devs on Twitter. I really need to do that.
Yeah, well, I know most of these I've seen already are just like the ones who oversee all gameplay elements, like Jason Bullman and Logan Bonner, and Michael Sayer as well, and James Casey. I met James. I met James. I think I might have met Michael. Jason Bullman and Logan Bonner were not at the PaizoCon this year, but usually what they do for a lot of these classes is they'll work a bunch together to kind of brainstorm it out, but then they'll have one predominantly dedicated designer to it who will focus only on doing it. So mostly just to keep everything in line and keep everything together. I'm sure there's a bunch of crosswork, but there's usually about like one designer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see here. Excuse me. Yeah, it's very strange that they don't actually do a lot of elemental damage early. I mean, well, okay, actually, yes and no. They all get the elemental traits, which may help. I don't know. It is actually kind of silly at level 1. The only elemental damage they can really do is actually fire. That is kind of goofy, not gonna lie.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little goofy.
Just a little goofy. A little whack. I guess technically that's because some of the air damage, or some of it can come from like their feats, but like, yeah, I don't know. That's really weird. Also, now that I'm looking at this, there's a shocking lack of electricity damage in air, which makes me sad because electricity is always my favorite like element.
I completely agree. It's always like the coolest. Like it's, it is yet another like case where we feel the same way, but we come about it in different perspectives. Because I know why you like electricity power so much.
I do.
Good old static shock.
Static shock. I also like it because electricity always feels like a very dynamic element.
That's
true. It can be used for things like magnetism and such like that.
Ever since I played the first 2 Infamous games with Cole McGrath, I've been like, electricity powers are the coolest. I love those games. I love how electricity is like shown in that game. It's really fun to use. It's also fun because electricity always has the option to be like, you have to utilize your environment also. Oh, shame on you, enemy. You're standing in a puddle right now. Like that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah.
And also the thing with Infamous that I thought was cool is the idea of like absorbing an element that you're like affiliated with. And the idea of like being an electro. What's the term? Like pyrokinesis, but for electricity.
Well, electrokinesis. I don't think there's actually one I've ever really heard of.
utilizing that in like a modern setting and being like, ooh, electricity, let me just get a little, like, let me just absorb this car's battery real quick. I always thought it was super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like stick your finger in a socket. Hey, Steph, thanks so much for the super chat. What's it say?
Utilizing that in like a, I think it is just $5.
Just $5.
Greatly
Well,
appreciate
$5. Yeah, thank you. I was actually just about to address your prior message. Funny enough, excuse me. It's very. I think the biggest problem and why it's not gonna come back is health as a risk in Pathfinder 2e is something that's just very easily overcome in a lot of different ways, making it not really a very strong risk for the class. In first edition, healing was not nearly as available as it is now. A lot of classes had their channels, which essentially were like their free healing slots in a sense, which were really good. But I feel like with some of the way healing has been done in this version, I feel like having burn just it's either A, they make it healing or damage that you can't recover from until the end of the encounter, which creates a lot of upkeep for the player and makes it really hard for the players to keep track of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, it becomes a non-issue because there's just a lot of good healing abilities in the game. So it's one of those things where they might be able to do something with it. I don't know. I think it's better off just not worrying about it. If anything, design a different way of risking it. Honestly, I would like to see maybe like an empowering gamble kind of action thing where they can get abilities, but if they spend extra actions, it makes the abilities better, because that's a risk reward. And the fact that you're losing action economy to gain damage, and then it can be balanced based on action economy.
Yeah. It feels also a little better to go for balance with action economy than balance with your health bar.
Yeah, drain condition, I see it, but at the same time, yeah, it would be devastating because it would reduce their con base checks, which means their overall class DC would go down every time they got it, meaning that after one or two uses, they're just going to stop using their class DC abilities because they're just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's always a lame, like, balancing method. Like, oh, you use this thing too much, you can't play the game now.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of ways that they could bring back some of the risk factor to the class. I just think HP is one of the ways that are very poor, and I think in every game it's very hard to balance, because making your characters more available for getting downs is a big thing, and unless the class just has so much health that it doesn't matter. Like, because I play games like League of Legends and everything, and all the characters that do that kind of stuff struggle, because the players who are really, really good with those class can get the use out of them, but the grand majority struggle because it's a cost reward that makes them more vulnerable, and their lack of skill gets in the way.
I'm trying to think of games that have mechanics like that. The only ones I can think of are like roguelites, and like that's the point of roguelites in the end, is you get very good and you make your glass cannon stuff. They're never like cooperative or PvP stuff. Like, I've yet to play a CRPG to have that element.
You know, I would even well, yeah, I don't know. Something that's also to consider as well, they're a light armor class, and they have 8 HP per level. So, like, anything that makes them more vulnerable, it's just kind of not a great choice, honestly.
Yeah.
And no class should be balanced by how much of a nuisance they are to their own teammates. That's also a really bad idea. So, you know, I legitimately like what they got with Kineticist. I think a class that's very augmentable and customizable based on feat choices, more so than any other class, is a really interesting idea.
They have the framework for something super cool. I'm going to be following this class. Like, I hope we get more info on like as it gets developed.
And the whole expertise thing, like getting expert at level 7, if they make that level 5, then I guess a bunch of people just can't complain anymore. So, you know, other than the, oh god, they don't use an attribute, but like at level 5, when everyone gets expert, they can just up their attribute to 18, and then they're the same as all the other marshals anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, it's just one of those things where I don't see a problem. And not only that, but like a +1, +2, while they're meaningful in the game, they're not so meaningful that a class becomes completely invalidated by it, especially when the class gets infinite spell uses that can, in utility, be better than spellcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, infinite flight at level 8 is dumb. It's really, really good. Air has a lot of really good abilities in it.
Like,
and
yeah, I can see that. It'd be cooler if they had electricity, like lightning powers.
I agree. I agree. I am also in this camp of, but why no lightning though?
Yeah, why no lightning? But you know, Earth is the one I got the most like excitement for.
Earth's got some really cool shit in it, not gonna lie. Stone Guardian is legitimately really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Because it makes a stationary ally, essentially, that your allies can use for cover. It provides all allies within, let's see, it's, what was it? Yeah, allies within the Guardian's reach, so any ally within 10 feet of the Guardian are under its protection getting cover, which means they increases their AC by 1, and then they can use the take cover action to get it to +2.
Handy.
And then every time you sustain it every round, it can make an attack. It's pretty good. Yeah. They have a lot of really good feats in here, actually. If you finagle it, you can do some really nutty things. I like their auras, too. I think Pathfinder needs more aura-based classes. I love auras, and there's just such a big lack of aura stuff.
I love me some aura stuff, too. That's just because 40k has a lot of them, and I think it's a fun way to do stuff. I think so too. Battlefield positioning is always really fun.
I agree. And I don't know. Like I said, honestly, if the only things they changed was the class got expert at level 5 and had 10 HP per class level, the class would feel a lot better, I think, to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of combat, they're nearly peerless depending on what feats they take, on what they can do to like get around, do certain things, and they still get skill increases. They still get skill increases. They can still do whatever skills, whatever. Just because con is their major attribute. I mean, that's like saying, oh, fighter can't be recall knowledge based because they have strength or dex. Like in one of our games we have a recall knowledge based fighter, and he's really good at it. Yeah. So
it is recall knowledge stuff is super handy. I refuse to use it, but it's really handy.
It is really, really good. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we were just kind of talked it to death at this point. We got started on it way earlier than we normally do. We usually wait till like 30 minutes in to start up the chat. If anyone has any more stuff they want to say about Kineticist, I'll be more than happy to entertain thoughts. And again, thank you to Steph for the $5 donation. That really means a lot. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up here up on the channel soon. We have a really great table talk next week. I want to make sure I confirm everything with them before I make an official announcement, but you'll be hearing about it either on the Discord or on the Twitter. If you have yet to do either of those, check them out down in the description or below on Twitch. I don't think I've added my Twitter to the Twitch side of things yet, actually, now I think about it. I should at least check that. Fix that. I could make a tab for it, and I think I failed to done so. Not only that, but
there's a link in your profile, but there's not like a tab for it yet.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Also, please like, follow, and subscribe on your platform of choice, because we do table talk every week. Granted, speaking of every week, we're not going to be doing it one week. We're not going to be here on the 25th. We'll be here next week, but not the week after, because I will be in Norway.
Yeah.
So we're going to be not having table talk that week. Instead, I will be trying to release 4 videos that week rather than the standard 3 videos we do on the channel. And if I can manage to do so. I would like to fill the week up if I can, but, you know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do what I do even now. not including preloading stuff and getting stuff ready. I only have 2 videos prepped for that week currently. I still gotta do at least 2 more.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be fun. Also, be on the lookout tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Saturday, I'll be releasing my next class build. I would have normally released the class build today, but we had Kineticist, so I wanted to talk about Kineticist and why it was hype. But the class build is coming out on Saturday, and I'm going to be talking about the Archivist's Thaumaturge.
Ooh.
Somewhat inspired by the Rusty Quill's Magnus Archives.
Hell yeah. Which, if y'all haven't listened to that series, you should.
If you like podcast horror, or I guess horror narrative stuff, it's really, really good. I really enjoy it. It's a
really, really good horror anthology series.
I really do not like its final season, honestly. It loses a lot of its creepiness. I don't know how up to date you are on it, so I don't know if
I have not listened to the final season.
But you know what happened at the end of the last season, right?
I probably do. It's been a long time since I've listened to it, admittedly. I've listened to the majority of it, I think, except last season, years ago. It was I think 3-4 years at this point. I just know it was in freshman year of college.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a bad memory.
I can't say really much of anything without spoiling it. I can't even really hint at it. But yeah. But yeah, I'm very excited for the Archivist. I think it's actually a very fun video, and I think it'll surprise a lot of people in its functionality. I think making a character all about books is gonna be really cool, and there's a lot of fun stuff that it does as well. So be on the lookout for that build video on Saturday. Today, for tomorrow, we're gonna have the next archetype video. We're talking about the Captivator, which I'm very excited for. I love the Captivator. It's one of my favorite archetypes. And I just had to do that one today because I just didn't have the time with grocery shopping and everything like that. So, and needing some sleep, at least. God, feels like I just cannot get enough sleep nowadays.
Yeah, you need sleep, apparently.
Apparently. Damn this biological function.
I do actually hate sleep. I wish I
do as well.
I wish I just never needed to sleep.
I agree. Sleep is lame. Sleep is for the weak. Ah, man, I'm so weak. Oh gosh. We have such a good output on this channel. I don't think people realize the output on this channel in comparison to a lot of channels on YouTube. Because, gaming videos are relatively easier to edit and to produce because you don't have to research anything, you just play the game.
Yeah.
Not all of them. So channels that release a game video every day, the hardest part is the editing, which understandably you have to watch all of it you record and cut it into bits, and so that means oftentimes you need to over record so you don't make it too short a video. But that is easier than everything that I do on this channel, which is literally I research something, I do my best to try to be informed on it. I get things wrong. I'm human. I'm like anyone else, and I've definitely gotten some things wrong, and it's changed my perspective. But I research something and then it comes out usually like the next day, which compared to a lot of other channels that do something similar, they take like 3-4 days to produce like one video. So we have a really good content upload on this channel, and we got a lot of it. Like, so many times recently I've been hearing people say, oh, I just got done binging your videos and I finally decided to subscribe. Like, as a channel, as a YouTuber, that's such a great compliment. It's great to know that you've made content good enough that people binge it for like several hours, because it means, one, someone's willing to watch you for several hours in one sitting.
Means you're doing something right.
Means you're doing something right. And not only that, but we're still over like 200 subs a month right now, which is really good. I just I don't know, I just want to thank everyone. And people keep telling me I need to I had the funniest experience recently. People keep telling me I need to like advertise the channel more to get more people to see it. And while I agree, I hate self-advertising. I think it's super cringe. And so I went on to Twitter and I'm like, hey, my community keeps asking me to advertise. I really don't know what to do. Can anyone help me? And rather than telling me anything to do, so I like 4 people follow me on Twitter. It's like, okay, I guess that works.
That's self-advertising.
Honestly,
I saw the tweet. I do agree. You should post your stuff on the Pathfinder Reddit. As cringe as it is, like, if you post your build thing saying, here's a really fun build idea I came up with, let me know if you have any thoughts, and it's a video link, I think you'll get some good responses from it.
Baby.
If you promote it more as in, like, it's not fully a promotion, I'm also asking for feedback and thoughts. I don't know. It's lame, but I see it's a necessary evil you have to do sometimes. As long as you're not like doing it aggressively in somebody's comments, like, fuck this guy, come to my channel.
Yeah.
If there's a dedicated place for it, it is a lot better of a thing. Especially because like the Pathfinder thing directly has Pathfinder creators once a week you can.
Yeah. But see, then again, it's just like, then the only people who really see that are other content creators trying to advertise their stuff.
not really on the Reddit. I think if you're going to self-promote anything on like a Reddit, and especially the Pathfinder thing, I think your build videos are really good things to self-advertise.
I think so too. I think I will do so. Celeste.
Just make it a thing that's not very like, I don't know, here's the thing I made. If it's just like, hey, I make build videos over here, let me know if there's any builds you wanna see. Not full on like, I hate self-promoting. If you just say like, I made this video, it's a build thing, do you have any thoughts on builds? That'll work. Especially if you promote it as a discussion, you'll get more engagement because people will comment.
It's fair. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'll have to look into it. I'm just really bad at that kind of thing. And I will probably do it when I have like 3 or more build videos already, so that when people come over, they'll have videos to binge on top of anything else they might binge on the channel. So kind of like the whole premise of don't start a YouTube channel until you have at least like 3 videos that people can watch right away. I might just do it that way. We'll see how it goes. I am actually legitimately, I've been having a lot of fun setting up these build videos. I was dreading the build video concept because I was like, oh god, I got to come up with a new build every week. And I'm already like 3 weeks ahead as far as builds are concerned, just because I've been thinking about it. The Archivist Thaumaturge is coming out, and I'm very excited for that one. Next is the Brainwasher Psychic,
Ooh.
And then after that, it's either the Eldritch Touch Sorcerer build, or it's the Lightning Blade Magus build.
Magus. I mean, I hear Magus. I'm interested.
I found some very interesting crossover between Magus and Monk. That makes for a very fun build. So
Nuts.
I'm very excited about that, and yeah, I don't know. We also have a lot of great things coming up on the channel here soon. We've been growing like crazy. We're gonna be talking to some bigger YouTube channels here soon for some collaborative stuff in some ways, and not only that, but you know, recently I would say we've been pretty on the ball when it comes to the Pathfinder 2e content spread. We've been pretty much first on the ground in a lot of places, especially when it came to Dark Archive. We weren't the first to produce videos, but man, we produce a lot of videos for Dark Archive.
Yeah.
At least twice as many as the nearest competing channels. So, you know, we got a lot of stuff here. So if there's any kind of content y'all are interested in, I do take it into consideration. I do listen, and there's a lot of times I've changed my mind on certain ideas. Obviously, I didn't want to do like archetype, like why this archetype is awesome, and now it's like one of the main sources on the channel, and we're like one of the only channels that really do archetypes. So, you know,
It really is like a good idea because you know people just they wanna know what's cool that they can add to their character.
Alex, distract them. I'll be right back.
Fuck, dude.
Just give me a minute.
Hello, chat. How's it hanging? That Kineticist, though, right? Pretty good / bad, whatever you feel. This hasn't happened for so long. Honestly, though, I'm just waiting for metal. Metal bending is sick as fuck. It's we disagree yet again, Dead Phoenix. I see we're at odds. No, like yeah, metal bending I think was one of the coolest things like when it popped up in Avatar, and also like it's just cool. I'm excited for when they drop that. I hope that part maybe they add to the playtest. Though from what I think someone said earlier in the chat, they don't update playtests. Which is sad. I would love to get a little sneak peek on what those extra elements do. I will say for sure I'm ignoring wood because that sounds like nature magic, and nature magic's cringe. Which luckily Cameron isn't here to disagree with me. So as the only host on this stream right now, nature magic is cringe, and it always has been, and it always will be. And why would you want to have like a blast with wood? Oh, you gave the enemy splinters. It's like hitting somebody with like wet, like a wet rotten log. It just explodes. But, you know, I've done that a few times. Man. No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to cross those streams at all. Then it's worse. You're someone swinging a thing at you, and you have the threat of death that a sword brings, and then they hit you and it collides, and you're immediately met with that fear of I just saw my life flash before my eyes, and yet here I stand. And that was cake. And now you have cake all over you. That's lame and awful. And a mess. they just punch you. They also like they couldn't because their codex doesn't allow them to have anything other than a chainsword. Like, oh, we can't use the cake sword. Our father said we couldn't. Dad didn't put it in the Holy Space Book. Cam, I see you're back.
I am back. Sorry, I was looking at more Kineticist things because someone I know mentioned about the Kineticist, and oh boy, already like 70 comments.
Oh shit.
But yeah. Anyway, apologize for that. I'm reading the comments here. I see. Alex, I'm glad you're here. Because at least if I go away, the channel can get plenty of entertainment bullying you.
I can't like this is why I could never be like a streamer. I can't stream, you know? Like I can't sit in front of a computer and be like, "Hello, how are you doing?" I could do a pre-recorded video just fine, but it's like live, there are people. And the thing is I have no fears of public speaking, like at all. It's just when it's an online thing, entertaining someone live solo is terrifying. I don't like the concept.
Good thing I only leave you alone for like a minute, so.
That's not true. You leave me for like 5 to 10 minutes sometimes, or it feels like an eternity.
It feels like an eternity.
It feels so long.
But yeah, I don't know. Kineticist is so intriguing because no one agrees. I see so many people on one side and another side of the argument, and it's so varied. So many people. Again, when it like I guess because the biggest thing people care about is just doing damage.
Yeah.
And if a class seems like it's bad at that, it seems that doing bad at it. And not only that, but man, no one can literally separate Kineticists from casters. They get compared to casters more than they do to other martials, despite being a martial class.
I mean, yeah, you hear blast and you're like, caster.
Yeah. Yeah, to be fair, most of their feats are just spells in a different form.
Yeah.
Because they even do the same actions as a spellcaster does. I'm very intrigued to see what they actually do for balancing for the Kineticists in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Honest to goodness, I don't think, for anyone who thinks that they're going to trim everything down and make it more like a normal class, they're not. The book that's coming out next summer is already like more or less getting formatted at this point, and they're expecting one class that's going to be like 30 pages.
Yeah.
They're going to make it what it is regardless. So I am very curious to see what they actually do with the class. And the crazy thing about it is to placate a lot of people who have issues with the class currently. It's just like a few number tweaks here and there, improving a proficiency here, or changing how con works, for instance, for some skills. The class will suddenly shift and it'll become very, very strong out of nowhere. That's how tight the balancing is in Pathfinder, though.
It is a very well-designed game.
I mean, Fighter literally gets hailed as like one of the chief damage dealing classes only because it has +2 more likely chance to hit.
To be fair, +2, that can mean a lot.
It's 10% more damage, and I think it actually equates to like 17% more damage or something like that, because you have to factor in them critting and all that. It depends on the strength of the enemy you're using it against, but they do a lot of damage. It's undeniable. But again, it's not all damage. The game is not all damage. There's so many exploration things that happen. It's like no one even runs dungeons, it feels like, because I'm like, I Have you never, like, come to a door and not been able to get through it and had to go find a key? Well, the Kineticist can just turn into fog and go underneath the door. You know, like...
Yeah.
And it's the same with casters, too. It's like all the people who complain that casters just do less damage than marshals on a hit-for-hit basis. When... Yeah, but casters also can turn into a dragon, or, you know, teleport your whole group across the planet. I like to see a fighter do that.
Yeah, they'll just hit the earth hard enough, you know?
They'll split the earth, cut the distance in half.
Exactly.
Caster would still get there faster, so... It's like, ah, man, why is my wizard not as tanky as a barbarian? Wizard sucks. It's like, you know, I'm also incredibly baffled by people, because there's a lot of people out there who want to do the muscle wizard build. They want to play classes in ways that are the exact opposite of what the class is supposed to be played like, and get angry when they're not able to do it, and that just blows my mind.
See, I feel that way. I want to play classes in the way they weren't designed, and the game should let me. But I'm not, I don't know. I'm also not on forums or comment sections crying that they can't. I'm just like, be cooler if they let me.
I like playing classes dynamically. I do like shifting that, and I've made my own muscle wizard in a sense as well.
Yeah.
Mostly because Hand of the Apprentice is such a fun spell. Just being able to hit an enemy from 500 feet away with your melee weapon, I think is really cool. Fun. But, you know, like, at the same time, I'm not going to complain when a game and a character is balanced in one way, can't be played in a way that's very contradictory to that. I feel like that's a very nonsensical stance to take. It's like, man, I have no points in strength. Why can't I wrestle anyone? I wonder why.
The game should let me wrestle. Bad game.
Oh, and you know what? That's actually a thing too, right? If the wizard invests in athletics enough and gets high enough level, eventually the wizard could just wrestle a big buff dude, even with a -1 to strength, because their proficiency is so high. Like,
I just think it'd be so cool if there really was the whole thing of, I'm out of spell slots. All right, time to throw hands, throw the staff to the ground, and just like put someone in a chokehold.
Meme. Like, oh, it looks like I'm out of spell slots. Too bad. Rips off robe, super buff.
Just
drops their staff.
Chokes out the BBG. The BBGs, and they're having an evil wizard duel. Like, you've run out of spell slots.
Yeah, you know you can do that, Alex, by playing a Magus.
Yeah, that's why I play Magus.
Muscle Wizard is Magus. There you go.
Yeah, and eventually when Kineticist drops, I can do the same thing.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I 100% believe Kineticist is going to be tweaked to the point of feeling good for everyone. I think it'll be great. I thought Thaumaturge was really wonky at first, and now that it's fully released, I think Thaumaturge is great. I love it.
Yeah,
Psychic,
it's gonna get fixed up.
It's gonna. 100%. Got a year, and it's just one of those things. But yeah, that's it for this stream. I mean, it was a pretty decent stream overall. Had a lot of arguments in the sensible way. Arguments. No one got angry. No one got upset. We had some very nice discourse. It was nice. It was good. This is how a tabletop should be. It shouldn't just be people complaining that damage numbers aren't high enough and that's the only thing that matters in the game. Because it's not. Even if you look at the game from a purely mechanical standpoint, there's so many mechanics for dungeon exploration and like traversal and all that kind of stuff that rely on more than your character's damage abilities that you can't even argue that combat's half the game. Like, combat gets 1 chapter, exploration gets like 3. So, and like what's even better than all that? A real good ass story. And you know what you don't need for a good story? High damage numbers. But it's okay if you have high damage number and good story too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that honest to goodness, the game is what you make of it. If it's about damage for you, it's about damage for you. But if you expand your horizons and balance all three categories, you can find that damage is only 1/3 of the equation. And if you do that, even like not as good as everyone else, but decently enough, then you're good to go. You'll still get an A rating as far as characters are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what can I say? Anyway, but that's going to be it for us this time around. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you have watched in post stream and you thought that we missed some points on Kineticist, please leave it down in the comments below. I will farm your comments. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not going to. I stated my piece on it. I actually have nothing left to say about Kineticist really, other than the fact that it's a playtest. They're testing things out, and they're not gonna give you the perfected version of the class in a playtest. They're gonna give you things that are a little wonky, so they can see how they're wonky and tune those things up. But give me your comments. Feed us. Feed the channel. You got any final thoughts, Alex?
Seems cool.
How are you always like caught off guard when I ask for your final thoughts? I do it every time.
Dude, you have to remember. Like, I don't remember things very well. And I'm a little dumb. But
I'm just a little guy.
I'm just a little guy. But honestly, I don't have as many problems with the class as other people do. I strictly have my own criteria. And as I stated at the beginning of it, my criteria for a class is primarily does like the aesthetic fit what I want them to do? I care a lot more about the flavor of how something works than the actual like way it works. So for me, Kineticist is fucking like home run. And I can't wait to see when it's actually finished and not a little wonky and I'm allowed to play it.
Fair.
But I also really hope that we see the other two elements in like a playtest thing or at least a little preview. Because I do really want to see what metal is, and then I also want to shit on the wood element because it's gonna be lame.
We're gonna have some words when wood comes out. I'll just make a wood character that does everything your character does, but better.
Ugh. No, it's not gonna do it better because it's gonna look dumb. Because it's wood.
It's gonna be better.
Oh, it's wood.
Anyway, good night, everyone.
Night.